Okay, everyone, I want to take a moment to just talk to you briefly about what we talked about a little bit earlier in regards to passive and active voice. And so I want to just do a brief sort of mini lesson on that, just to kind of let you know the whole goal of all this is to help you with the craft lesson portion of the rubric that you can find posted on Google Classroom for the memoir. So let's just talk quickly about painting with action verbs and what that means. Now you can see here with the notes, feel free to pause this at any time and look at these notes if there's something that you want to clarify with yourself. But you can see here it talks about the whole purpose of this. Basically using action verbs is always going to be using active voice is going to be something that's always preferred because it allows the writer to be more engaged with the sentence itself. It doesn't seem as passive. We want to avoid passive voice as much as we can. And let me just start by kind of pointing out, one of the big things that you need to really note is paying attention to being verbs, your use of being verbs. Now, when I say eliminate them, eliminate being verbs, what I mean is try to eliminate them when you can. There are only so many ways that I could say, for instance, my name is Mr. Hall. I am an English teacher. There's only so many ways that I could say that, and so we have to use linking verbs, the being verbs. We have to use them from time to time. The problem comes in when they are used with action verbs, when they are used along with them, and sometimes that creates passive voice, okay? So what we have to focus on is shifting our sentences from passive voice to active voice. So a good way to kind of help you do that is to key in on, when am I using these action verbs? When am I using them? When am I using these being verbs? Use them as like a red flag for yourself, okay? Like use them to kind of point out, okay, I used a being verb, so am I using passive voice? All right? Now, one final point I want to make before we kind of do a couple of quick practice ones with this. Passive voice is not the same thing as past tense. You are writing a memoir, so everything you talk about should be in the past tense, meaning it should be coming from your memories. There's a difference between past tense and present tense, okay? And there's a difference between passive voice and active voice, and there's a difference between passive voice and past tense. They're not all the same thing, so you kind of have to pay attention to what are the differences. So when I talk about avoiding passive voice, this is what I'm talking about. Let's look at this example right here. First of all, it says the runaway horse was ridden into town by an old white-whiskered rancher. This sentence is incorrect because it is passive, okay? It's written in the passive voice, and that's not good. We don't want to use that. There's only a few times when passive voice would be correct, okay? Most of the time you want to avoid it. So let's talk about how we would fix this and why this is incorrect. So look right here at our verb. It says was ridden, okay? So think about that. The runaway horse was ridden into town by an old white-whiskered rancher. But the question is, who did the riding? Okay? So you have to think about who was it that actually did the riding. Well, the answer to that would actually be the white-whiskered rancher. He did the riding. So we look right here, the horse is what was ridden. So it would actually be our direct object. So we've got our whole sentence all out of whack, and that's what we call passive voice. It's whenever you are allowing the object of the sentence, or you're having the object of the sentence serve as the subject role, and the subject serve as the object. We have that all messed up. So we need to think about how we would actually look to fix that. So there's a very easy way that we could fix this type of passive voice. Okay? Just shift here our verb to rode, all right? And then we want to relocate this up to the front of the sentence and this to the object portion. So now the correct sentence should read, an old white whiskered rancher rode the runaway horse into town. Okay? Now, if we do that, we will no longer have passive voice. We will have what's called active voice, and that would be correct. All right? And so this isn't just a style thing. Some of the other craft lessons I'm going to show you are style-based, meaning it's kind of like an artistic choice. This isn't an artistic choice. This is something that you need to be correcting in your writing. You should not be writing in passive voice when you could shift it to active voice. Again, there are times when you cannot, but this would not be one of those times. Because why would we say the runaway horse did the riding? Okay, or that we're not even saying that it did, but why would we have it in that subject box where it shouldn't be? That makes no sense. Okay, so let's do our next example. If this is still kind of unclear to you, let's just sort of talk about our next example. Same thing here. This sentence right here is passive voice. Okay, the grocery store was robbed. That's our verb. Remember, we're looking at the action verbs as well as the being verbs. Was robbed. So here's our red flag. Was robbed by 2 armed men. Again, this is all out of whack. The people who did the robbing, who they should be the subject, would be the 2 armed men. The grocery store is what was robbed. Okay? So again, we have this all out of whack. This is again passive voice, and it is wrong. So let's again fix that. All right. What we need to do is adjust it so that we're now saying the two armed men, all right, robbed the grocery store. Okay, so we get rid of this altogether. Okay, the 2 armed men robbed the grocery store. Okay. So adjusting it in this way would make the sentence correct. 2 armed men robbed the grocery store. That would be the correct way to phrase this sentence rather than having it all out of whack like it was before. And that would make this sentence active. Okay? So that's really all there is to this. One final point I'll make. Always kind of pay attention. Another red flag. Again, I told you pay attention to the red flag of the being verbs, but also pay attention to the red flag of prepositions being used like this. By an old white whiskered rancher. Anytime you have this kind of over on this end, a prepositional phrase kind of tacked onto the end like that, especially if it follows a being verb like this, very, very strong chance that it's passive voice. Extremely strong chance that it's passive voice. So again, part of your rubric, part of that rubric that I'm going to be grading with is I'm going to be searching and paying attention to the voice that you're writing with. I want to see an active paper. If I were to see passive voice, it better be a situation where it cannot be fixed or changed to reflect active voice. Otherwise, again, it'll be something that'll mark you down in your rubric. So again, you really need to pay attention to this as you're doing your proofreading and kind of finalizing your last draft, okay? All right, so go ahead and tune in to the next craft lesson that I'm going to post. Make sure that you follow it as well. All of this is kind of added in as a part of your overall the grading process for the rubric. All right, have a good one. Thanks. Bye-bye.